Yeah, that's the big dog. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Kallas Remarks with your host right here, Jeff Staszak, my man over there, Steve Kallas. Normally, this would be championship weekend. It is not. It is the penultimate weekend before championship weekend, and so we have an extra week this year because we had an extra game. Steven, how are you, my man?
Oh, good, Joe. Great to be with you as always.
You too, my friend. I'm sure you're better than the folks in Dallas this week. It's one thing, well, to win 12 games and then to lose a playoff game at home to possibly an inferior team, statistically, when you have weapons all over the field, you've proven that you could be one of the most potent offenses in the league. But the way it ended, it was just, again, I'm from Philly, so it's kind of true justice. Just watching a dysfunctional Dallas team when they should be winning more games, and all these years, 8-8, 8-8, 8-8, and 4-12, and 12-4, and can't get out of their own way. Let's go back before we go forward. Last play of the game. Now I heard Rex Ryan's on right now. I've heard 16 and 18 seconds is the demarcation line. You don't have a timeout, and you plan a running play, which is dangerous. You got to get up, and the referee has to spot the ball, and then you have to spike it, have enough time to spike it, either kick a field goal or, again, take a shot at the end zone or whatever. There was 14 seconds left. Dak ran for like what it seemed like 80 yards and wouldn't go down. And the thing that I love, and you and I talk about this all the time, when Pete Carroll and Darrell Bevel made that mistake in terms of not running, and they come back and they double down and say, I'd have done it again. Mike McCarthy actually said the play should have taken 13 seconds, and we had 14 seconds. Yeah, that's a big margin for error, Mike. If someone doesn't get back to the line or the ref takes a while to spot the ball, the center doesn't hike it right away, and it cost them. It was embarrassing more than anything because they still had like 30 yards to go for a touchdown. Would have been difficult. But your thoughts on the Dallas mess?
Well, I think you got to have a clock in your head if you're Dak Prescott, and you have to know when to go down, and he just waited a little too long. Although I will say this, when they put the ball down and then the ref is climbing between two Cowboys just to touch it, he did the best he could. They should have given him away. But the thing that got me the most was, well, he should have fallen down a few. Does it matter if you're trying to get into the end zone from the 25 or the 30? Does it really matter? Of course not. And you're not kicking a field goal, obviously. So he should have got down a couple seconds earlier. That takes a lot of in-game. I'm not saying he can't do it, but he must not have focused, or he cut it too close.
And McCarthy did say, and I'm not saying threw him under the bus, he said that was supposed to be a 10-yard run by Dak.
Right. And if that's what it really was, then you literally have to know where that yardage is and just fall down, give yourself up. But the thing that got me that I still find interesting, and you can watch that replay 20 times and you'll see it 20 times. The referee climbs between them and does it as quickly as he could possibly do it. But once he places the ball and the center gets the ball, every other play in every other game, he waited that split second that he didn't have.
That's what I said. What are you waiting for? Are you on a silent count? Are you waiting? Snap the ball.
And also, some people I spoke to about that, well, the whole line had to be set. The whole line was set before the referee came in. Right. So you didn't have to worry about that. As soon as you touched it, you should have snapped it. And guess what? That's 1 second. Now, do you think they would have scored a touchdown from the 25? Unlikely, not impossible. But it's just kind of, I don't believe anybody anymore. If you're under 30, you've never seen the Cowboys be real good. So the notion that they're America's team is a joke. They can build $1 billion stadium where the punter can still hit the roof.
Yeah.
Remember that the week before, I think? Or whenever the punter hit the roof and you're like, really? This is $1 billion stadium and the punter can hit the roof? It's like Tampa Bay's baseball field that everybody mocks, where it depends which catwalk it hits.
Yeah.
But certainly they could have had a chance. But look, the Cowboys were 6-0 in the NFC East. They were 6-5 against the rest of the league. The NFC East was Washington was poor. The Giants were terrible. Eagles didn't try in that last game, although they did beat them the other time. And they always looked phony to me. At the very beginning, they were incredible offensively. But after the first 4 or 5 games, even though their numbers were still good at the end of the year, they really weren't. They lost Gallup, which nobody talked about. I understand they got 6 other weapons. But to me, it's almost like the Cowboys being the Cowboys. And I don't know that Mike McCarthy's the job is in jeopardy because everyone's like, well, he was 12-5. I'm like, yeah, he was 12-5 in the NFC East. He was 6-0 there. He was 6-5 in the non-NFC East. But they'll probably bring him back. I really thought he was going to be a big upgrade from Garrett, but he showed us last year he wasn't.
I know.
And
I
this
agree.
year,
I think, yeah.
and this year, you got to tell, it's like Steve Fisher in that Michigan game where he said, yeah, we told Chris Webber and the rest of the team he didn't have any timeouts left. McCarthy, I guess he said it, but you got to say, only run 10 yards or look up. You better get down when there's like 6 seconds left or whatever time you thought you needed. Just fall down. And he didn't. He fell down too late. But again, the final is the center has to snap immediately. But that like never happens when you're the center in football.
I agree.
Maybe on a quarterback sneak, 4th and inches, you want to snap quickly as soon as you hit the ground. But the line was already set. So if anyone says that, they don't know what they were looking at.
And blaming the
again,
refs is just such bad. The optics are terrible. And then
Correct.
people bombarded. There was like, they weren't looting, but they were obviously to display their displeasure with the refs and throwing stuff on the field and blah, blah. And Dak says, Dak, who comes across, and he probably is, and he probably just was, it was the moment, said, yeah, good for them. Like, come on, man. Listen, everyone's losing sight of the fact that they're probably not going to score a touchdown there anyway. So they lost as a favorite at home after a 12-win season. That's the bottom line. Everyone's deflecting away from the actual fact that, they weren't winning that game.
Yeah, and the 49ers are good, man.
Good, and they're on a roll. You don't want to catch a team like that. You talked about, I think we both picked the Niners. They came back from 17 down at LA the week before.
Correct.
The quarterback, I know the people that are Jimmy Garoppolo naysayers, that pick he threw. I mean, they almost kind of gave the game away, but, they didn't. They helped. Defense, I thought, was great. So they are off to Green Bay, and we shall see that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. The other one play I wanted to talk about last week, because none of the games were any good except the Dallas-Cincinnati game from an objective perspective, or maybe the Raiders-Cincy game, which I want to talk about right now. I don't like officials as a general rule. I'm watching the game. I'm at a bar, actually, but I could hear the whistle. I don't think it would have affected anything because no one was near the receiver. But I did see a Dallas. You can tell when they kind of stop a little bit. It was kind of bang, bang. It was right before the catch. But by rule, if the whistle blows, and they replayed it, and they still, again, doubled down on a bad call. The referee, first of all, shouldn't have blown the whistle. Burrow didn't step out of bounds before he released the ball. Right. And again, they got sacked. Did that refereeing crew from the rest of the playoffs? Rightfully so, I think, because when you see a mistake or make a mistake, and then you don't correct it with tangible video evidence, I don't know what was going on there. What'd you think of that?
Well, and the best they came up with after the game, which is a total fabrication, is that all the referees thought that the whistle was blown after the catch. That's an out and out lie. You'd have to be.
Can you listen to it? Like, we know we can watch replays on video, but can we listen to it again?
I don't know. I guess it's not reviewable because they
otherwise they did review it. What are they reviewing? If we're listening for the whistle and we can't listen for audio, what are we doing?
I will say this, though, it's probably the right call for the wrong reasons, because the corner of the Raiders in the end zone was not within
5 yards. Yeah.
And that assumes he stopped. I don't know that he stopped. I think
it was a hesitancy. It would have had no effect on the play.
Right. So you can argue it's the right call for the wrong reason, but you could also argue, hey, a rule is a rule is a rule. And there's no doubt it was blown before. Now, would they have scored after that? Again, you don't know.
It's the great unknown, and they won by 7.
Right. So that might have been
being forced to kick a field goal, which might not have affected the outcome unless you had money on one of the sides, and then you're irate. In fact, that kept me from a perfect weekend, having that debacle.
Really?
But, it is.
You're the man.
No, it got lucky because I was surprised at how some of those games were not close at all. Real quick before we get to this weekend, I never thought I'd see a New England team implode like that. Just 7 touchdowns in a row? What? And they were easy. It seemed like they were easy touchdowns. If nothing else, forget about Mac Jones. Belichick always comes up with a pretty good defense. And I love Josh Allen, but I think he's elite. But Are you serious? Like, I thought Buffalo would win and cover. I think they're going to beat Kansas City in KC, but that was ridiculous. What'd you think?
Well, Josh Allen is playing like MVP Josh Allen, and he did it in back-to-back games. I'm always a little nervous that he can lay an egg still, but no, you're totally right. What you did see about the Patriots, especially when he ran right around Judon, was Judon trying to get him in the open field and he couldn't even touch him. What you saw, I think, were the Patriots are not very athletic. They have a good defense. They're very smart, but they really don't have those athletes that they had once upon a time. And if Allen is playing like Allen can play, as opposed to bad Allen, there's really two Allens to me, good Allen and bad Allen. He played like great Allen, as he did against the Patriots in the other game. You know, the first game with the win was a little nutty, but you know, Allen's a big time QB if he plays like him, but he's also, to me, Stafford-like in that he can really mess up a game. And unfortunately, Mac Jones, much as we like him and he deserves credit, I don't know if it was, you know, a lot of people talked about after 14 games, he wouldn't be able to play well. Well, I think it was also he played three really good teams, the Bills twice and the Colts, and he was bad in those games. Although that early interception, it looked like he made a perfect pass for a touchdown to make it 7-7. Not that that would have changed the game, but that interception was just incredible in the end zone or on the goal line. And so, yeah, I think Belichick goes back and he said, boy, what am I going to do? Because based on those two games, the last two against the Bills, you ain't beating the Bills. And if Allen only gets better from here, and you would think he would, Patriots are in trouble. You know, Steve Young said that as good as Mac Jones may become, and he may become a star, he's never going to be Josh Allen because he can't put the ball down and run people over like Josh Allen does. And you're looking at the next 10 years. That's a good point. And you're right. Belichick couldn't do anything to stop him in the run game or in the passing game.
Amazing.
They have to get younger and more athletic. And they got a bunch of guys who might leave now. I don't know if McCourty's coming back. He's like 32, 33. I don't know if Hightower's coming back. He sat out last year and played this year. I think Jamie Collins is around but didn't play much. You know, Van Noy, these guys on defense are getting old.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many of them are coming back. But it was shocking to me. I actually thought the Patriots could win because of Belichick, but it wasn't even a game, as you know. But good for you for picking them. Good for you.
Oh, well, thank you. I think Buffalo, I think they're on a mission now. I think they've gotten it right. And again, I go with the quarterbacks almost always. We're going to look at, and this is a reason, again, I'm taking the Bengals over. We'll get to our picks in a little bit, but Bengals at Tennessee. Tennessee's had that week off. The team with the bye, very rested, and they have Derrick Henry coming back. But, and a lot of people will think Tennessee's a Fugazi team. I don't know. It's 12 wins. You know, pretty impressive. Not you don't just back into that. But I like Joe Burrow and I like the way he's playing. And I think he's elite of elite. Ryan Tannehill is okay of okay. Running game goes to Tennessee, and we'll see how Cincinnati's defense, holds up with, 4-point favorite against Joe Burrow. All right. You want to tease me with 4 points and Joe Burrow? I might go that way.
Well, I kind of like the Titans. I think Derrick Henry, no matter what kind of shape he's in, is going to give them such an emotional lift. I think Vrabel, who's had his ups and downs, is arguably the coach of the year because this is a almost bad number 1 seed.
Yeah, that's what I mean. People are like, really? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think they also have a healthy, their receivers are healthy. Julio Jones has kind of been left in the background. This might be a breakout game for him. And Tannehill, if he can get to the point that they're running it well and he can go play action, is just a much better quarterback. I know you like quarterbacks, so it has to be Burrow over Tannehill. But I'm kind of leaning towards the Titans because I think it's such an emotional boost. And if he can remotely run like Derrick Henry, even if he only carries it 12 to 15 times, I think he gives them such a lift. The offensive line of the Titans must be licking their chops. So I'm leaning towards the Titans in that one.
Okay. Well, we may differ there, although I think that line, again, I thought maybe 3, an extra point gives me a little pause. Here we go. Now, this is going to be interesting because a lot of back in the heyday games were conference championship games, big playoff games, 49ers and Packers, old school NFC football. 10-7 Niners, but they're on a roll. See, I throw out the records at this point. I know Green Bay's rested, and they got, to me, one of the top 5 quarterbacks I've ever seen, at least from a talent standpoint. Aaron Rodgers, 5.5-point favorite at home. I forgot to tell you, Joe Staszak rule, when a home team is favored by 5.5 points, it has to be 5.5 or 5. It's 5 or 5.5. I would go the other way as a general rule. For some reason, I've kept stats on this, and that number is a death for the home team. Again, take it for what it's worth. I do like Aaron Rodgers. Again, I like to go with the quarterbacks, but that's a lot of points. And considering how the Niners have been playing, their defense was spectacular against Dallas. Your thoughts?
Well, I think the 49ers are the team you don't want to play. It was interesting because the Packers got the #1 seed, which everybody wanted. Now you have to beat the 49ers and the winner of the Bucks Rams to get to the Super Bowl. That's one of the toughest roads I've ever heard of for a team that got to buy. Look, I think all the underdogs, and I don't know if this has ever happened before, I think all the underdogs can win. I don't know that any of them will, but I think the 49ers can beat the Packers, and we both picked the 49ers to beat Dallas. But that was as much of their coming on in Dallas. We thought was kind of a phony playoff team. The Packers are not a phony playoff team. But I don't know if Bakhtiari is playing. He was in and out of the lineup. He played 27 snaps in the last game, the last regular season game. And, he's the best left tackle in football and healthy, but I think he missed last year as well, right? Wasn't that one of the keys to the Bucks beating the Packers in the NFC Championship game? So I don't know if you can rely on them. And this Deebo Samuel has become probably the most versatile offensive weapon in the NFL, bar none. He can run it. He averages 6 yards a carry. He can catch it, and he averages like 18 yards a catch. And yards after the catch for someone like him, or even yards after he breaks through the line of scrimmage, he's unbelievable. So they have they have weapons. Jimmy G doesn't have to be great. You'd hope he doesn't throw stupid interceptions. I think the Packers can probably win, and I'm going to take the 49ers definitely with the points. The only open question for me is, would I pick them to win like I did last week? But they're not playing the Cowboys.
Are better than the Packers the last 2 years in the conference championship games. Again, that 5.5 points, that's a lot of points. We'll get to the pick.
And one other thing, Joe, the Packers and Aaron Rodgers are 0-3 against the 49ers in the playoffs, including 2 years ago. And the Packers' record at home in playoff games is, the Bucks beat them last year. Didn't the 49ers beat them in Green Bay? Whatever the record is, it's not good. You say, oh, they got home field advantage. Oh, they played so hard for home field advantage. It hasn't been kind to them. And I think Rodgers is 0-3, but I don't think they've ever beaten the 49ers in like the last 25 years in the playoffs. I think the number was like 0-7 or something. Ooh. But the problem is, I think the Packers are going to win the game, but I think the 49ers can win. And I know you're going to like more underdogs than me, but I'm going to take the 49ers with, it's not the Joe Staszak 5.5 rule, but it's just a feeling that it's going to be a field goal game.
Okay. I like that. Let's fast forward to tomorrow. And I thought, who knows? I don't care. But 3 o'clock and 6:30, that's what times the games are on championship weekend, which I don't understand that either. They go 18 weeks with the 1 and 4:30. And again, it doesn't matter to me. But the 3 o'clock game at Raymond James Stadium, the Bucks, I'm still looking at -3, but I have seen 2.5 in other venues. It'll probably go off at 2.5 or 3. That's almost nominal. Rams. People love what the Rams have been doing. They embarrassed Arizona, but to me, Arizona was primed for that. They only had one good game in like the last 6, and that was a win at Dallas, another dysfunctional organization. Exactly. But the Bucks have some injuries. I know Fournette's coming back, and it's the Tom Brady rule. Listen, I would tell people, find another game. If you might like the Rams and they might cover, but I'd be like, yeah, I'd try another game. There's other games out there, but again, I know the smart money's on the Rams. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's still hard for me to bet against not only Tom Brady, but the defending champions. They must have 25, 30 guys on that roster who won the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah.
They've been to the mountaintop. I'm not sold on Matthew Stafford because even though he finally won a playoff game, that wasn't the game. That game was over like in the first quarter.
Right.
And, where Kyler Murray threw one of the dumbest interceptions and the shortest interception for a touchdown in the history of the playoffs. And so he wanted to save 2 and he gave up 7. So that wasn't too bright. Again, when you look at it in retrospect, Mac Jones' first playoff game ever, not that it was his fault, they got 47. Kyler Murray, first playoff game ever. I think it wasn't it Derek Carr, believe it or not, first playoff game ever? I think it was. And nobody, I think no rookie since 2012, when Seattle won. That's why it was a tough one to pick Mac Jones. I did, and Bill we trust, not anymore. And what's interesting to me is when you look at Belichick and then you say, yeah, but he doesn't have Tom Brady on the field to pull it off. And for this Rams game, you look at Tom Brady and you're like, yeah, but he doesn't have Belichick behind him. I love Todd Bowles, Mr. Blitz.
Yeah.
I don't think you can really blitz Stafford. The number that I saw that I'd actually like to read was like a pressure number, but he's incredible against the blitz, Stafford. He had like the highest QBR. But how about this? When he's under pressure, and I assume that means with 4 guys, or maybe a blitz gets through, in weeks 1 through 8, Stafford under pressure, his QBR was 76, his yards per attempt was 9.9, and he had 5 TDs to 1 pick. But since week 9, under pressure, his QBR was 5, his yards per attempt was 5.3, and his TDs were 4 TDs and 5 picks. The second best team in the league this year at getting pressure on the quarterback at 33% were the Bucs. So I think you're going to see, they hope that they get there without blitzing too much. And Todd Bowles loves to blitz. So I'm still leaning Tom Brady. Can they lose? Yeah, I think the biggest question in the whole game is Wirfs at right tackle, Jensen at center. The whole season, their whole line, one guy missed 1 game. That's it. That's incredible. Yeah. But now both Jensen and Wirfs got hurt. And if Wirfs really had a high ankle sprain, I think it was moronic putting him back in the game. Now, these guys, their game is Jensen went back in and played every snap. He's a lunatic, the center. And I mean that in a good way.
Yeah, no, I know.
But Wirfs, if you have a high ankle sprain, I can't believe that the doctors say you can't hurt that further, because you can hurt that further. And if you'll recall, Kerrigan, who used to be great with the Redskins and with the Washington football team and is still good with the Eagles, he just ran Wirfs over and sacked Brady. And right away, when you saw that, you knew he was no good and he couldn't get up and they had to carry him off the field. I think that's the biggest thing. And I don't know that he's going to play. And I think his backup is hurt as well. So to me, not only does Brady have to get the ball out quickly, you're going to need Gronk or somebody there to chip or a back to chip. But if Wirfs doesn't play, I think that's bad news for the Bucs. Can the Rams win? Absolutely. I'm still taking Brady over Stafford to make a couple of mistakes. And we'll see what happens. It might be too much reliance on my son and the Patriots and the Bucs.
Well, all I know is I can't remember. I have to look it up. I don't know that I can't remember a team that's beaten Brady twice in the same year. Rams already did it in week 3, I believe, or 4. So. And I like Sean McVay. I'm not saying it can't be done on the road. We'll get to our pick segment. Last game, the Bills at Kansas City, 1.5-point dog. Think you know the way I'm leaning. Let me have your thoughts on this one.
Well, I'm leaning Chiefs because Mahomes is Mahomes and Mahomes. And yes, he was bad at the beginning. And yes, they had those 2 lucky wins, in my opinion, over the Giants, where they were horrible, but they were playing the Giants. And then the Packers, when the one game that Aaron Rodgers
wasn't around for.
And I think when push comes to shove again at the end of the game, if one of the quarterbacks is going to freeze up and have a bad game, it's not Patrick Mahomes. If you tell me Josh Allen is playing like he played against the Patriots, those 2 games, I'm like, they're going to be real tough to beat. But I'm still kind of leaning towards Mahomes because he has a lot to prove. What he developed in the second half that he never had before was some patience. to dink and dunk, which he never did, to check down, which he never did. He's always trying for big plays. And I think that's going to be very helpful. Hilaire is playing, the back is back, and you can run a little on the Bills. And I'm kind of leaning towards the Chiefs. And while it's two great quarterbacks, I think Josh Allen can still lay an egg, and I don't think Patrick Mahomes can.
Interesting. All right, well, here we are. We kind of leaned and gave hints to our picks, but let's hear your picks, brother. How'd you do last week? How'd you do? What do you got this week?
Yeah, 3-3 last week. The Oakland game really upset me. I didn't think they could win, but I thought they could cover.
Yeah, me too.
And it is what it is. But I'm going. So I was 3-3. The best bet, which I liked last week, which I mentioned, I thought the 49ers could win outright. That was as much a vote against Dallas as it was against the 49ers. But the 49ers are playing very well. If Jimmy G is relatively healthy and doesn't throw, which he might, doesn't throw a stupid pick or two. But I was watching some highlights on ESPN of Aaron Rodgers against the 49ers, and they must have a little thing on him like the Saints have against Brady. The Bucs are probably lucky the Saints didn't make the playoffs. Yeah. Although they crushed them last year during the regular season, and the Bucs did beat them in the playoffs. And I would have picked the Bucs if they played, even though they shut them out 9-0. Don't forget last year the Saints beat them 38-3, like in week 10 or something, and then the Bucs never lost again. But I'm going to go Titans -3.5. I think the Derrick Henry thing, even if he doesn't run it like Derrick Henry, is going to be such an emotional lift. And I think those wide receivers are healthy now. And I don't know, maybe I'm living in the past on Julio Jones, but he's been awful quiet. But I think he can wake up and have a big game, especially if they get a running game going early and they can go play action. Because Tannehill, like most quarterbacks, is a much better quarterback with play action. I'm going to take the 49ers plus the 5.5. I can't pick them to win outright like last week, although I'll say it again, all four of these are four of the closest games I've ever seen. When you're down to 8 teams, I think any underdog can win, but I'm just taking the 49ers with the 5.5, and maybe the Packers squeak it out. I'll say it again. I'd have to go back and research, but I've never seen a bye team with a tougher road to the Super Bowl than playing the 49ers and either the Bucs or the Rams. I'm going to still stick with the Bucs. I saw 1.5. I thought it's been 1.5 in New York anyway in the last 2, I think on DraftKings or maybe FanDuel, whichever one it is. But I think it might very well be a field goal game anyway. If anyone's going to break down in that game, even though Brady might be under great pressure and can't get it done, if anyone's going to make an unforced error, it's Matthew Stafford. And even though he does have a win now, I don't even view that as a playoff win. That game was over in the first quarter. But again, don't forget, without Wirfs, they're going to have to do something on that right side because it might be Von Miller or it might be Floyd. You got Aaron Donald coming up the middle. They're going to be very tough. But on the reverse side, I don't think the Rams have their left tackle either. Isn't he out now? Whitworth, I think.
Yes, Whitworth.
And so I think JPP's back and Shaq Barrett is back. Those are the edge rushers. And of course, they're brutal up the middle with, Sue and Vita Vea. So I think I think Stafford's going to have his own problems. And that's pressure. That's not blitz. And for some reason, Stafford is a totally different quarterback. When you blitz him, he's much better. But if you just pressure him with 4, he's been terrible since week 8, literally a 5 QBR and, more picks than touchdowns. And finally, I'm going to stick with Mahomes. Can the Bills win? Absolutely. If you tell me Josh Allen is going to keep up that level he's been at, which is an MVP level, except he didn't do it all year, then I give the Bills a big chance. But I will say this, back in the earlier game when the Bills crushed them, the Chiefs weren't the Chiefs yet, and Chris Jones did not play. And that's a huge difference.
That's right.
Finally, I don't know who the idiot was who put Chris Jones on the outside at the beginning when he's the best inside pass rusher along with Aaron Donald in the NFL. But finally, they moved him back in, and that's the main change that made their defense, I won't say great, that's not true, but very good compared to what they've been in the past. So I'm going Titans, 49ers, Bucs, and Chiefs. How about you?
We differ on 2 games. I'm going Bengals today. I go with the quarterback there. I could be very wrong. Again, I think the line's a little high. I should think it should be 2.5, 3, the way the Bengals are playing. Excuse me. So that might tell me something, but I get sucked into that all the time. So I'll take the Bengals plus the points. I like the Niners. I think they could win the game. I think it's Aaron Rodgers' year to at least, he's got a good shot at making the Super Bowl, but the Niners could cover as well. It could be a field goal game. So I will take the dog. I'll take the Niners. We are on the same page there, same page as the Bucks. I never get a bet against Brady in a playoff game, and it's hard to beat him twice in the same year. So I'm going with the guy who's won like 32 playoff games versus the guy who's won 1. I like their coach on the Rams. I think Arians is fine. He's won a Super Bowl. Sean McVay has come up small in the Super Bowl. And I like the Bills. I like the way they're playing. I know it's tough to beat a team twice in the same year. Bills beat them earlier in KC. I like the way they're playing. I think they're on that kind of roll. And I'm not saying the Chiefs aren't playing well, because they are. And those wins over those bad teams in those bad games got them to a level in terms of the seed. They didn't get the number 1 seed, but the number 2 seed, and they hung in there. I mean, they might have stunk, but they still won some of those games. Mahomes is playing at a very high level. I'm going to go Josh Allen here. I think their defense, I give the check mark to the Bills defense. So I got the Bengals, the Niners, the Bucks, and the Bills, and it's going to be a fun weekend. Hey, brother.
Yeah, but Joe, you didn't tell us what you were last week.
It's 5-1 last week. Yeah. You'll not hear that record come out of my mouth very often.
No, everybody's going to rewind the tape now and really listen to your picks, because you were 5-1 last week.
I hope not. I retired after the Georgia game. These are all just entertainment purposes. Hey man, before we roll, we have to give some props to a guy named Willie O'Ree. A lot of folks never even heard of him. If you follow the NHL and follow these things, kind of the Jackie Robinson of the NHL, except it wasn't that level of player, but first African American to play in the National Hockey League. Your thoughts?
Well, I think Willie O'Ree never got his due for a number of reasons. First of all, he only played 2 years with the Bruins. I think it was like late 50s one year and early 60s one year. He only played 45 games. He only scored 4 goals, not taking anything away from him. But I think the reason back then is, first of all, back then the entire league, when he broke in, the entire league was Canadian, as was he. So it was a big deal that he was an African American, but the NHL wasn't what the NHL was. As you know, they had 4 teams in America, the Bruins and the Blackhawks, the Red Wings and the Rangers. But hockey had its own little niche, I thought, of like real fans. And my old man was one of them. Also, he wasn't a real good player, as you said, although he played 20 years in the minors and he was good. I'll just give you a couple. In the Western Hockey League, which was a pretty good amateur league in 64-65, I think 2 years, maybe 3 after he was out of the NHL, he scored 38 goals for the Los Angeles Blades of the WHL, and then 33 the next year, and then 34 the next year. This guy was a big time player. And then even at the age of 38 in 73-74, playing for the San Diego Gulls, where he now lives in San Diego in the WHL, he had 30 goals. This guy was a big time goal scorer. But what he did, bigger picture, which wasn't recognized till decades later. The other thing I'll say is the year after he left the Bruins, Tommy Williams came in, and Tommy Williams was the only American player from the year after Willie O'Ree came in for a number of years. When he retired, Tommy Williams was like 115 goals. He was the highest scoring American ever. Of course, that was later, stopped by Joey Mullen, who, by the way, went to Powell Memorial Academy, who's in the Powell Memorial Hall of Fame. But, he got over 500 goals. But it really wasn't quite the American sport. I know people think it's not now, but there's so many teams and so many, Gretzky kind of moved them to the West Coast when he went to the Kings, and now there's a bunch of teams in Florida and in Texas. So I think it's much more of an American sport now with lots of Americans than it was then. And I don't think anybody really woke up till the 21st century, but he had to withstand racial slurs. It was interesting because he said, when I was a kid growing up in Fredericton in Canada, there were only 2 black families, and we never caught any grief anywhere. We didn't even know what that was. And then it was really in the NHL when he got it, including a Blackhawks player who they never named, who was really vicious towards him from a racial perspective. But, you know, he did what he did. He was the first guy. He did score the first goal as an African-American player, and he opened the doors. These guys today really respect him as the Jackie Robinson. But I'll say it again, when it happened back then, he didn't play very long. He only played 45 games. Hockey wasn't hockey like it is today with, I'm going to guess, what do they have? 25 teams in the US now or whatever it is, all over the country. But he was the pioneer. He was the Jackie Robinson. And you can't compare baseball in the 40s
Right.
to the NHL in the late 50s, early 60s in America. Baseball was the sport. There had been Negro leagues for decades. There was a lot of pressure. Once Judge Landis died, he was a big racist who didn't want blacks in baseball. Once he died, that's when Branch Rickey signed Robinson. So it was a much bigger story. And again, he was a great Hall of Fame player, not taking anything away from Willie O'Ree. He deserves it. They retired his number 22 at the Boston Garden, 2 days ago or something. But they did have on, I think it was TNT, Gretzky showing great respect, Anson Carter, an African-American player, showing great respect. And he deserves it, Willie O'Ree. Thank goodness, I think he's in his 80s now, that he's around to enjoy it. And he's worked for the NHL, outreach, helping minorities play hockey. He's done that for, many years now. But I will say it again, it wasn't until the 21st century that anybody really woke up. And I think it was in 2008 when the NHL really recognized him, because it was like the 50th anniversary of the first time he played.
Good
But he
stuff,
deserves
man.
it all.
I don't know. What's that?
Better, he deserves it all. Better late than never for Willie O'Ree.
I agree. Good stuff, brother. You can catch our podcast weekly on YouTube, or you can check out Steve's stuff. Also, the YouTube on his weekly Facebook forum page, Speaking of Sports with Steve Kallas. You can also check out his videos on WestchesterCountyPost.com. Also on YouTube. Check out my Facebook page. You can follow me on Twitter at JoeStaszak975. Good stuff, my man. Hey, we're winding it down. I mean, it breaks my heart, but football's coming to an end, but we still got some good games left, and we'll have some fun with it. Appreciate it, my man. We'll talk to you soon.
Always a pleasure, Joe.
All right, folks, have a great weekend. Be safe and God bless, and we will talk to you next week.